Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another INART 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at Gandalf the Grey based off his appearance in Lord of the Rings. Now if you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new INART review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, there is this clear plastic overlay that I had removed for the intro just because it's really glossy. There are a lot of reflections. It does say Lord of the Rings and Gandalf on top, and you have AG-A002. For those of you who don't know, INART's releases are kinda periodic table of elements themed. So this guy is one of their silver releases. I also like that the underside of the glossy plastic overlay is frosted, so it's not entirely high gloss. There's a little bit of depth there. Oh yes, this is probably the classiest unboxing experience I've ever had. The box itself is super thick, sturdy cardboard, and over the top of that, this is real fabric. It's actual linen, and it's got this really nice warm tone to it. I love the color and I love the texture. Up top, Lord of the Rings in this metallic gold print, and in the middle, you have the inscription that was on the One Ring, and you can rotate this around his name in the middle. Down below, INART. On the side of the box, the fabric does continue to wrap all the way around, and it just feels so plush. Lord of the Rings in metallic gold foil, as well as a couple of splotches that right now don't look like anything. Until we flip the box around. On the back, you can see the splotches make up a silhouetted image of Gandalf. That right there is Gandalf's eye. Up top, his name in metallic gold foil, as well as some more information down below. Oh, I'm confident you all are going to enjoy this unboxing experience when you get yours in hand, just as much as I have. On this side of the box, with the flap, it says Gandalf the Grey, and having the text right justified all the way over this side is a little bit quirky, and a touch more visually interesting. The text is raised, by the way, on the fabric surface. When you do go to open up the box, the flap is held on with magnets, and they've even continued the fabric up underneath the top cover. You do get a literature packet, which we will go through, and then the figure himself is encased in foam. But it's not just bare foam, there's also some black velvet. This is a first for me, and I love it. It just seems even more high-end. This all just feels a little bit special. Wrapping up each individual hand to protect it inside the foam, even Hot Toys doesn't do that with their DX figures. First in-hand impressions of the body, which is packaged separately. It feels nice and hefty and sturdy, and the outfit, to me at least, looks on point. We will have to do a little bit of futzing. Now, the head sculpt being packaged in this clear container, they've done that just to protect the hairstyle, and holy shit, this head sculpt is insane. We will of course get a much better look outside of the container when it's installed on the body. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. It's pretty much rectangular. On the underside, we have the information for Gandalf, and all the way around, there's a really nice level of detail. We've got some sculpted rock work, then over the top of that, a lot of dry brushing and washes sunken into all of the recesses and crevices. Around the front, his name etched into the surface, with a gold inlay helping it stand out. Now you'll notice there's no crotch grabber or waist clamp here. That's because there are magnets inside the center of the base. That means that if you do have Gandalf standing directly dead center, then it's going to work really nicely. But if you have him in a wide stance, the magnets don't work as well. I kind of wish the whole surface was magnetic. Or better yet, imagine if they were adjustable, if you could open up the display base and slide the magnets around. Now he does come with a real fabric hat, and the surface is nice and weathered. This thing is dirty. You also have a wire inside the top portion, so you can pose it and you can adjust it depending on your personal preference. On the inside, you can see the stuffing, and the reason you can see that is because they wanted to leave this hole open so you could slide this hat further down his head sculpt. If they did it like the Asmus one, where this was covered with fabric, then the hat would be sitting overly high and come across kind of goofy. He also comes with a real fabric bag, and I particularly like the woven strap. You get this smaller little pouch up top, it's full of padding, and the bag itself is absolutely disgusting. I also like that the underside of the flap is cleaner, and the same thing with the back, because it makes sense. This thing's getting splattered with dirt and grime. Underneath the flap, because it's closed most of the time, it would be a little bit cleaner. It is a real proper bag, by the way, so if you wanted to have his hands inside this, so when you go to change the pose, you don't have to go back to the box, the hands will already be in here, and add some padding to this, making it look a little bit more full, you can totally do that. Initially, INART did say that Gandalf was going to have magnetic eyes, but sometime throughout production, they just decided it wasn't feasible and they switched back to the joystick. To apologize for that, they threw in these fireworks, and I'm kinda glad they did because the fireworks are iconic. The first time we ever see Gandalf driving through the Shire on his horse and cart, he was letting off fireworks for the kids. And even if you don't have him holding these, you can just pop these on the display base as some set dressing. Some world building, if you will. The larger bundle of fireworks have washers in the crevices and this twine sculpted over the top, looking like it's wrapped around. You can also remove the stick if you so choose. Then the smaller one, the stick is fixed in place, but this is much more vibrant. I'm 100% going to have these on the display base. Oh, you all know I love my 1/6 scale books, and this is the best 1/6 scale book I've ever seen. The pages are fully printed, they also look completely dirty and grimy, and there are a lot of individual prints, they're not just repeated over and over again. The front is tattered, so too is the top and bottom. And soiled. This thing looks absolutely disgusting. The front cover has some gashes on the surface, and around the back you do have some inscriptions and some lighter dry brushing. He does have two staffs, and they are made of this rubbery plastic, so they're a little bit flexible, which does help when you're trying to put them in his hand. This one has a string up top, and it's got this little peg that's been driven through it. You can store his pipe in here, which is just a really nice touch, and it fits in there very securely. The pipe has some lighter shading towards the tip, this would go in his mouth, and some sculpted tobacco with some dry brushing that makes it look a touch lighter, like this is in action. Now, the staff has washers in all of the sculpt work, and it genuinely looks like wood. This is some of the finest wood texture that I have ever seen in 1/6 scale. Look, I hate to keep repeating myself and saying this is the best I've ever seen in 1/6 scale, and on and on and on, but it's true. I guess attention to detail is just INART's forte. This staff is still just as well detailed as the other one, but up top it's a little bit more lively because this is the one you can install the gem into. You do get two of these light cores, you just push it together to light it up, then you can insert it into the top of the staff. It's a little bit tricky to remove though, so just be careful when you are trying to do that. Now, to install the gem, it is keyed, so it will only go in one way. When you push it in, it locks in nice and securely. And that's a neat effect. It's not something that I think is going to last forever, but you do get two of those light cores. So if one dies during figure photography, you're doing a photo shoot and it dies, just swap it out and then you can keep going. While the sheath is made of plastic, there is this speckling of black on the surface. You can see it pick up the light and a decent level of leather grain texture sculpted in with a wash over the top. The blade inside is real metal. And it's surprisingly prickly, so please be careful when you're posing him. The last thing you want to do is put too much pressure on the blade. I reckon this thing could do some damage. On the crossguard, there are some inscriptions, and on the front of it as well. Then the handle is done in this dark navy blue. It matches the color of the sheath. Now we're getting to some of the smaller accessories. This is the moth he grabbed when he was on the top of Saruman's castle. You have some printed details on the wings, on the inside and the outside, and you do get a hand specifically designed to hold the moth. It is made of this rubbery plastic, by the way, so when you wedge it into his hand, I don't think there's any risk of damage. Oh, they get even smaller. You do get the one ring, and it is absolutely microscopic. It's a 1/6 scale ring, of course it is. It is die-cast metal, and the inscription is on the surface. You probably won't be able to see this on camera. In person, if you whip out a magnifying glass, then maybe. You also get the envelope that Gandalf helps Frodo put the ring into. You also have the wax seal around the back, and the envelope looks pretty nasty. There's some dirt and grime on the surface. Oh, these hands are bloody beautiful. There's a decent level of skin texture, there's some shading on the knuckles all the way down, and even his fingernails have dirt underneath them. It looks like this is a grubby old wizard, exactly like he was in the film. Look at that thumb, that is nasty. There's also some liver spotting on the surface. Now you do get some relaxed open palm hands, the moth holding hand, gripping hands, pipe holding hands, a pointing gesture hand, as well as an open palm hand. Now, before we move on to Gandalf, there is some assembly that's required. Before we get to that assembly, we do want to consult the instruction manual. This was everything that was in the literature packet, by the way. You do get a ticket stub that says Lord of the Rings with an image of the figure on the front. Then around the back, you get the release date information. You can tear this off if you so choose. I choose not to. Then for the instruction manual, this is one of the most thorough guides I have ever received with a 1/6 scale figure. It goes to the effort of explaining exactly where every single joint is and where every single accessory is inside the packaging. Super thorough, and I appreciate that. Lastly, inside this super shiny metallic envelope, metal themed just like their releases, is a letter. It's pretty much just thanking us for going along this journey with them. Feel free to pause to read. What we are going to do now, though, is start assembling Gandalf. Seeing as though packaging head sculpts like this isn't really commonplace, not yet at least, I thought it might be worthwhile to show you how to remove it from this little base portion. I also like the chrome undulating finish down here. It almost looks like liquid metal, which I'm pretty sure is what they were going for. Now, to remove the head sculpt, you simply twist it off, and when you have it at the furthest point it'll go, then you can remove it from the neck connector. It's literally a keyed clip, so when you slide it in, if you do want to pop it back on this piece, rotate it until it locks in position. Then you can bring in the body. The neck connector is magnetic and it's keyed. There's a notch around the front, plus there's a notch cut out at the front of the head sculpt. Just make sure you are moving the hair and the beard out of the way so that when you do pop this on the body and the magnet takes over, none of the hair is getting trapped inside the neck connector. Now, right now, the hair does look a little bit unwieldy, same thing with the beard. Futzing will be required. That's just the nature of rooted hair. This is real wool hair. You are going to have to get some water on your fingertips, run it through the strands, style it, get it to look the way you want it to. To install the sword sheath into the little straps, it's actually pretty difficult. You just want to make sure that this piece coming down from this blue strap goes over the top. Then the front one that's tied up with the silver buckles is in the middle, and the longest one is down the bottom. Once you've done that, then you can slowly but surely work these straps up towards the top of the sheath. When you have all three in this position, that's when you know you've done it correctly. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Except for the sword and sheath, I did want to pop them on just to complete the look. And now that I have, look how far we've come, and in a pretty short amount of time, mind you. It wasn't that long ago that figures looked very realistic, but they were nowhere near as realistic as this guy is. You can't tell me that this doesn't look like a real-life Ian McKellen standing in front of us just rotating around on the turntable. Every little piece here plays its part, down to the body. The proportions are on point, he fills out the outfit where he needs to, and he's got this natural slope down at the shoulders. Then the outfit on top of the body is tailored perfectly. It's got these pleats ironed in, it's this nice textured fabric, and it just drapes exactly as you'd expect it to. Plus there's weathering on the surface. You have the contrasting belts, and they're pre-tied. No futzing around out of the box, they're already on him. And then lastly, the head sculpt, the pièce de résistance. This head sculpt is out of this world good. Even from a distance, you can tell that's Ian McKellen as Gandalf. The hair makes it though. If this was sculpted hair, maybe it would have looked great. This doesn't look great, this looks perfect. Just my opinion, it's going to be down to personal preference. Like I said, even from a distance, I reckon you can tell how good this head sculpt is. Close and personal, kicking things off with Gandalf's head sculpt. I have done some styling, especially for the beard. I wanted to pinch it in so it wasn't quite as wide as when we just popped it on the body. And I wanted to make sure that there was a clear separation between the fuzzy textured beard hair and the strands of hair coming around the front over his shoulders. You can also move these back if you so choose, because at certain points in the Fellowship of the Ring he did have his hair slicked back. For me, I like to have my Gandalf looking a touch more messy, so this is the look that I've settled on. The hair is all natural, real wool hair. There's a good variation in terms of the colour. They've not just gone with one colour, there's lighter grey, dark grey, some silver, some white, and some black thrown in there. Plus, they've already baked in most of these curls, so all you're doing is not really styling, I guess, it's just moving some strands around. There is less product in the beard, but it is fuzzy enough that it also does what you ask it to. If you pinch it in, that's where it's going to sit. The hairline is very sharp, both for the beard and up the top, and I love the way the hair curls in towards his temples. Then the head sculpt. The sculpt itself is as close to perfect as I have ever seen in 1/6 scale. That is Ian McKellen, no question. And then the expression, having a slightly furrowed brow and giving him the frown lines, making him look more serious, but then you can move the eyes, which we'll get to, so you can mix it up a little. All of that works for me. The paint applications on top of the sculpt, with that super well-defined skin texture and the little freckles and the liver spots and the shading to mimic natural complexion, and some red under his eyes to make him look tired and old. It ticks a lot of boxes for me, I'm telling you. This is the most realistic head sculpt that I now have in the collection, surpassing INART Joker. They are 2 for 2. But my favorite detail is the wild-looking eyebrows. They were pretty prominent in the movie, so I'm glad they made it into 6 scale. Someone did ask me if Gandalf has ears, and yes, he does. You can have his ears poking through his hair if you so choose. For me, I prefer to have them be less visible, just like in the film with the hair coming over the top. If you do want to access his moving eyes, when you lift this top layer of hair and you get to this different textured hair, this is the removable panel. It is held on with magnets. Now, initially, INART did plan to have Gandalf's eyes move with a magnet that you kind of hold on the outside and move them around with. They couldn't get that done this time, so they went with the single joystick, and I'm fine with that, especially when the eyes are in perfect alignment. They move in tandem, they go up, down, left, and right, and it's crazy how just with moving eyes you can alter the expression. If you do want to have him look a little bit more mean, you can have him looking up like this. Or if you want to have him look a little bit more shocked, perhaps, you can have him looking down, like the scene in the mines. For me, I like his eyes ever so slightly off to the side and looking up. This dude looks mean as hell. You know what? He actually looks really good with the hat on. I was tempted not to use it in my display just because it hides that gorgeous hairline. Now that I'm seeing it though, it's iconic. I think I've got to go with the hat. Let me know what you think down below. To make sure you have it on correctly, the seam goes around the back, and this is as close to accurate as I've managed to get the top of the hat. It is wired, so it is adjustable. You can pull it further down if you so choose. For me, I like to have it sitting slightly further up, just so it's not obscuring too much of the head sculpt and the hairline. You can see a little suggestion of it up underneath the brim. Now, the hat will put some pressure on the rooted hair, so when you take it off, he will have hat hair. Just make sure that you style it after you take the hat off to get him to look as good as possible. His outfit is pretty straightforward, right? It's just some grey robes. Actually, no, there's more to it than that. Yes, it's grey fabric, but the weave is spot on. There are also some tattered sections and some straight up gashes like right here. There is so much weathering on the surface. It looks like Gandalf has been through some shit. All of the pleats are baked in, and because there aren't any wires in the sleeves or the front or the bottom of the robes, it has to drape perfectly, and I'm glad it does. I would have liked wires. It's not a deal breaker though, especially not when this does pretty much what you ask it to. If you do want to manage the robes when he's just standing there, you can tuck it up underneath his armpits, then bring the arms down, and just by pulling it around, you can adjust the way the robes look. Not a perfect solution, but there's enough structure here that they should do what you ask of them. Underneath the robes, you do have his brown shirt, also tattered. Then over the top, you do have this string that I think is a little bit too long. I am tempted to trim it just up underneath his beard, which I think is the correct length. I could be wrong on that, just my personal preference. He does have 2 belts over the top. This one is looped, and that's a real metal buckle, whereas this blue strap does have some detail on the surface and a couple of real metal parts and pieces. You already saw how to install the sword in here. It's not super challenging. It's a little bit involved though. This is where I really would have liked to have seen wires, down the front of the robe and around the bottom. There is enough friction here that when you tuck the excess fabric between his legs, it'll hold in place. Still, it's not quite the same as wires, and you could have gotten really dynamic with your posing. Underneath the robe, you do have some grey trousers, and the pattern that was seen on the Asmus Crown series Gandalf is missing. That's because I don't think you ever saw that pattern in the movie, and I don't know if there's a ton of reference for it. If that's a deal breaker for you that the pattern isn't there, well, now you know. His boots are real fabric, and you have some proper laces. Then on the underside, the soles do have some detail around the back, and they are fully painted with some washes in the crevices and over the top. There is, however, one more thing that we do have to try out. And that's the bag and the outer robes. I've also popped the hat on just to complete the look. You know, it's the traveling wizard look. For me, I can't get enough of this. This is how he's going to look in the collection. The outer robes, there's a lot of fabric, but they're tattered everywhere. You've got loose strands, they're nicely weathered, and it adds some contrast and bulks him up a little. The proportions were already outstanding, but now with the outer robes on, I think he looks even more realistic. You can take the hat off if you so choose, and then do the required futzing to get rid of the hat hair. This also is a neat display option. If you're curious about the magnetic wrist pegs, there are magnets inside each of the hands and on the tips of the pegs. They do most of the heavy lifting. It's the mushroom peg on the end, though, that gives us that last 5 to 10% of extra security. When we push them on, they sit on there really nice and securely. I don't think these hands are going anywhere. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, INART Gandalf, and on the right, the Asmus Crown series version, who up until now was my favourite Gandalf. I still really like him, but with the INART one, I love him. This is now my perfect Gandalf. I have already ranted and raved about how good the head sculpt is, and the outfit, and the proportions, and all of that is still true. Standing next to the Asmus one, it's kind of a night and day difference. Real is the word that keeps coming back to me. The INART one looks just so much more real. Now, Ian McKellen is a pretty tall dude, he's 5'11". So right now, we don't have any other INART Lord of the Rings figures to compare him to. In the future, we will know if the scaling is accurate. He is ever so slightly taller than the Asmus one, though. For a much closer up comparison, there isn't much that I haven't already said about these two. I happen to prefer the INART one on the left. I think it just looks more like an actual person versus the Asmus one, where it comes across like a really high quality figure. Not to say that it looks bad, just doesn't quite reach the realistic heights of the INART one in my opinion. The hairline isn't anywhere near as accurate, the skin texture isn't anywhere near as HD, and the eyes look way more sunken in. It's all down to personal preference, as I've said already a couple of times in this video. If you prefer the Asmus one and you already have it, that's a win. For me, I'm going with INART every day of the week. Going over articulation, starting off with Gandalf's head sculpt, because there is so much hair here, it can get in your way. But because it's rooted hair, it's not going to prohibit his range of motion. There is a ball joint at the base of the fixed neck. The head sculpt will look forward to there, going up to there. You also get swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there. They will go forward and back. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow. That is a very sturdy joint. And for the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. The torso will crunch forward and back. There is, however, a significant amount of padding here, just so that he fills out his outfit. You do get swivel and a touch of pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there. This is all free-floating fabric, so no restriction. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend on ratchets at his knee, going pretty much the full way, and then the ankles. Inside these proper material boots, there is a double ball peg. Good for forward and back. That's a crazy range of motion going back. You also get swivel as well as ankle tilt. Wrapping up on INART's Gandalf the Grey. If there was ever a perfect 1/6 scale Gandalf, this guy is pretty darn close. I don't think it gets much better than this. For Lord of the Rings fans, dude, come on, you are going to be over the moon when you get this guy in hand. All of the scene-specific little accessories, the die-cast ring, the real metal sword, and the printed book. You all know I love my 1/6 scale printed books, and this one is no exception. Then we get to the figure himself. 2 staffs, multiple different outfit options. You got the bag, you got the robe, you got the hat, or you can ditch all of that just for a very classy and super proportionate looking Gandalf. The icing on the cake, though, has got to be the head sculpt. It is killer. This head sculpt is the best head sculpt I've ever seen. Ever. Now, that's not to say in the future I won't see a better one. Right now, because of the hair and the detail and the moving eyes and the expression and the likeness, All of that stuff compounded together adds up to a head sculpt that I just didn't think was possible at mass production scale. It clearly is, and INART, they have taken 1/6 to that next level, and I cannot wait to see what they're working on next. If they continue on this trajectory and their figures keep getting better and better, oh, we are in for one hell of a ride, and I am so ready. If you are a Lord of the Rings fan and you've been waiting for a Gandalf for your display, go ahead and get this guy. Thank me later, he is truly that good. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.